people like me. You need people like me so you can point your f***ing fingers and say, that's the bad guy.
The undisputed super featherweight champion of the world, Alicia, the Bumgarner.
That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Welcome to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. This weekend, on the undercard of what is Sonny Edwards' Matchroom debut opposite the ring, Andres Campos.
Very interesting fights, a very solid card. We're going to be seeing Ellie Scottney challenge Shernika Johnson for Shernika's IBF title. We're going to see Nina Hughes defending her WBA title against unbeaten Katie Healy.
And obviously, Sonny Edwards' latest title defense in his first fight under the Matchroom banner, he has to win. He has to stay a champion to stay in that unification conversation.
There are 3 title fights on that card, 3. But the fight I'm about to talk about isn't a title fight.
Sonny Edwards is not the only fighter that will be making his Matchroom debut this Saturday. Shannon Ryan! Unbeaten Shannon Ryan. A 258 management fighter that used to fight over there on Sky Sports and Boxer.
Shannon ended up crossing over from Boxer over to Matchroom. She'll be making her Matchroom debut this weekend on the undercard of Edwards versus Campos.
She'll be taking on Italy's own Martina Bernile.
A fighter I tried to research ahead of the fight, but footage of Martina in action in the boxing ring is scarce. The most results my search for footage of this fighter in action, the most it yielded was footage of Martina in the octagon, not the boxing ring. This is a fighter that comes from a varied combat background, mixed martial arts and boxing.
Don't know a lot about this fighter aside from the fact that she is several years older than Shannon Ryan.
11 years older, hailing from Italy with more pro bouts and more rounds in the bank than Shannon Ryan. Martina sports a professional record of 5 wins with 1 loss, 1 draw,
1 knockout. Only 1 recorded knockout to Shannon's unblemished record of 4 wins with no losses, no draws, no knockouts.
About scheduled for 8 rounds in the women's super flyweight division. Super flyweight, that's where Maciela Lujan reigns as that division's IBF champion.
Ashley Gonzalez of Mexico. She's got the WBC.
Mizuki Hiruta.
She's got the WBO. Argentina's Clara Lescurat. She's got the WBA. This is where Shannon Ryan campaigns, and this is the weight where this weekend's contest will be taking place. Many opportunities for Shannon at this weight because it's less political than some other weights. In many ways, it's an open book.
Technically, Shannon's the only fighter at this weight with a major promotional outfit behind her. There is also the West Coast zone, Adelaida Ruiz. She's with Marv Nation, a well-to-do promotional outfit, but not a major one, not a big one. They ain't got a broadcast deal.
Matchroom does. Matchroom, who now promotes Shannon Ryan. This will be her first fight of this year. She debuted as a professional in March of last year under the Boxer banner. Fought 4 times. Busy schedule. Hopefully she fights 4 more this year. This will be her first fight of this year. Opposite the ring, Italy's own Martina Bernile, who has stated
she's a bit of a mystery. There's no footage of her in action, no footage in a boxing ring. I'm not sure if this was a deliberate effort to scrub any footage of her on the internet as to prevent her opponents from getting the drop on her.
I remember hearing that a similar thought process was put in play for Ireland's own Caitlin Phelan.
I think she had a fight in Germany, and what her team decided to do was scrub any footage of her off YouTube as to prevent her opponent from studying her. Perhaps that's what we're looking at here. I don't know. I'm just brainstorming. There is no footage of this woman in a boxing ring.
What we do know is she has more pro fights than Shannon Ryan, more rounds in the bank, and we do know that this is a fighter that has fought at least 3 times in 10 rounders. Her last 3 fights were 10-rounders.
Coming off 3 consecutive victories after having suffered her first professional loss in September of 2021.
She ended up rebounding off that loss in November of that same year and fought 2 times last year, 2 times in 2022. She'll be opposite the ring unbeaten Shannon Ryan this Saturday. We don't know a lot about this woman, but what we do know is she's got more rounds in the bank than Shannon.
That might speak to her conditioning, her gas tank. That
She's fought in 10-rounders before. Shannon hasn't.
Shannon's greener.
And younger, though perhaps having a higher ceiling than Martina. That has yet to be determined. We'll find out this Saturday. Keep your eyes peeled.
Going to be keeping a close eye on this one.
I have seen Shannon in action at least, and Shannon Ryan, she exhibits a high ceiling, good speed, good athleticism, good snap in her punches. This is a fighter that could go all the way, even if we don't know what she'll be facing on Saturday.
She's one to watch out for. Keep your eyes peeled for Shannon Ryan on the undercard of Edwards versus Compost.
Campos. In men's junior middleweight news, Tszyu says the road to undisputed continues. I was never going to pull out. Last week we heard that Tszyu had suffered a dog bite, some kind of injury that was quickly tended to, and the upcoming bout with Carlos Ocampo will go on.
After suffering an injury, there were serious concerns regarding Tszyu's ability to move forward with the fight. Tszyu's handlers would quickly make it known that he was going forward with the contest.
And now Tszyu himself has taken to social media to eliminate any doubt regarding his next fight. Quick little update. I'm good, Tszyu said. I'm actually really good. Nothing is wrong. I had a little bit of an incident on the weekend, but I'm good to go. Thank you, everyone, for the messages. I truly appreciate it, but man, we're good to go June 18th. The show goes on. Nothing changes.
Activity in a fighter's career is important. At the contender level, the championship level, that's what keeps you sharp.
It is.
That's what keeps you on your P's and Q's.
Staying in the gym, staying ready, while beneficial, really isn't a substitute for competing under the hot lights.
It's not.
Oftentimes we talk about the inactivity of many of the PBC's fighters and how it's not conducive towards their marquee value, but it's not conducive towards their ability either.
It's not just the money stuff.
Their ability as fighters and their sharpness, their hunger, wanes the more time they spend away from the ring. Keith Thurman almost immediately comes to mind.
Yeah.
Tszyu continued. The road to undisputed continues. Never ever did I say I was going to pull out or postpone. Ain't gonna happen. Never was, never will. I'm ready. June 18th, let's get it on. See you all there. Presuming he wins, the next fight for Tszyu is an undisputed showdown with WBO, IBF, WBC, WBA,
Undisputed junior middleweight champion Jermall Charlo. The WBO has set a deadline beyond the Ocampo fight should Tszyu win for Jermall to satisfy his mandatory challenger.
a fight that has been postponed several times due to a serious hand injury suffered by Charlo in training camp. Initially, it was Tszyu.
Tim had a hand injury last year after the Terrell Gausha fight.
Needed approximately 2 months to recover to let the hand heal. There was still plenty of time to do the fight later on in the year, but that didn't happen. Then Jermall this year, he suffers a hand injury of his own in preparation for the Tszyu fight. Now, Tszyu expects that Carlos Ocampo will be much harder than his previous fights.
He's already fought once this year opposite the ring. Former WBC champion Tony Harrison racked up a highlight reel knockout. Will he rack up another opposite the ring Carlos Ocampo?
I'm a fighter. My job is to fight. I won't sit on the couch and wait for Jermall Charlo's hand to get better. I want to fight in the meantime, said Tszyu. The fans deserve fights. The Charlo fight is in the making, but I'm not underestimating Ocampo. I've got a hard task ahead of me. Technically, this fight is going to be much harder than my previous fights. The Mexican style will require something new in me, and I expect it to be tough. Despite being Australian and on the other side of the globe, I'm headlining a fight on Showtime for the 3rd time. Is anyone else doing that? Everyone knows I'm coming to take over.
That's right.
The Terrell Gausha fight for Tszyu was both his PBC and American debut. He headlined that show. He headlined the show with Tony Harrison that took place in Australia but was broadcasted here in America by way of Showtime. And this fight with Carlos Ocampo.
Same deal.
I wondered about that, but we now have confirmation that Showtime will be airing the fight. And what that means is that Tszyu's pact with the PBC is still ongoing.
If it weren't, they wouldn't be showing his next fight on Showtime.
Initially, that needed clarification. I myself didn't
didn't know if Tim Tszyu's next fight would be picked up by the Showtime platform, but it has. The 27-year-old Ocampo rode a 12-fight winning streak into his last matchup with Sebastian Fundora, which saw him drop a decision to Sebastian last October on a Showtime main event. The 12 consecutive triumphs dated back to the only other loss of his career, which came to current unified welterweight champion Errol Spence Jr. in a 2016 knockout defeat. I'm looking forward to my fight against Tim Tszyu, said Ocampo. We are both warriors who go forward without fear. The fans will be the true winners that night because I'm going after that title, the WBO interim title, which would make the winner the mandatory challenger to Jermell Charlo. Going after that title at all costs, and it's coming back to Mexico with me. He won't want to hand it over to me, so I'll just have to go in there and take it from him. We'll see about that. Tim Tszyu means to stay WBO interim champion en route to a Jermell Charlo fight. Jermell Charlo, who he had some choice words for. Talked about it here on the channel, how in so many words Tim accused Jermell of not wanting to do his job, not wanting to fight anyone. To that, Charlo responded by saying, I'm knocking that bitch out. I don't play that shit. We'll see. The undisputed junior middleweight champion promised to make Tim Tszyu pay for that trash talk once their fight is finally rescheduled. Charlo predicted that he'll knock out Tszyu when the IBF, WBA, WBC, and WBO junior middleweight champion took to Instagram Live on Saturday night from the backyard of his home. Hey, when they release me to fight, I'm knocking that bitch out from Australia, Charlo said in reference to Tszyu. And I ain't gonna say nothing else. And this motherfucker can run his mouth, talk. He gotta get confirmation from all the motherfuckers that you fought somebody else. Because, you know, like I've done my due diligence in the world of boxing. He said, when they release me to fight, you're telling me all these weeks and months he's still not released to fight? We've got to take those comments at face value because it's the most we know about Charlo's situation, Charlo's injury, and his prognosis. If he's saying when they release me to fight, that implies he hasn't been released to do it yet. Jermell Charlo has by September 30th. That's the deadline to do the fight with Tim Tszyu. September 30th, the latest. I've been skeptical as to whether or not we're going to get that fight because if nothing else, it's been over a year's time since Jermell fought. It's a pretty major detail that the defending champion will not have seen action in over 12 months if the fight actually takes place. It doesn't seem like Jermell Charlo is at liberty to keep busy with anyone else. No, it's got to be Tim, and it's got to be next for him. Tim's got to be next, so long as he wins, so long as he beats Carlos Ocampo. And we're in June, ladies and gentlemen, so even if Jermell had the wiggle room to schedule another fight, he doesn't have time. Keep busy fight. He doesn't have time. According to him, he hasn't even been released to fight yet, and we're in June. It really only leaves him with enough time to prepare for a proposed Tim Tszyu fight in late September. At 154, I'm the king. I've been the king. I'm the king. You've got to try, though. You know what Tony Harrison told you. You know. You got this staircase over here. You know. Keep feeling yourself. We'll get there. When I do fight you, bitch, it's over. I don't play that shit. Sounds good, but it'll be bad optics for Jermell, having said so much already, if the time comes and goes for him to fight Tim and he doesn't do it. You know, the summer really only lasts for about 3 months. September is not that far away. Just don't know how confident I can be that under these circumstances, over a year layoff and what's supposed to be a serious hand injury, that Jermell would go straight into a fight with Tim. That's less than ideal for Jermell. That's all I'm saying. Circumstances could be a lot better. And finally, in men's super middleweight news, David Benavidez Sr. says, give Canelo what he wants. We want the opportunity, not the payday. Words that may come back to haunt him if Matchroom decides to make a play for the fight, and they might. It hasn't happened yet, but it could. When everyone says payday, we don't give a damn about payday. We care about history, Benavidez Sr. said. Bullshit. We need that fight to make history and show people that we are the best at 168. He needs us. We need him. The only thing he needs for his legacy is to fight David Benavidez to shut everyone up. Everyone wants to see the fight. I think we are facing Canelo at the right time. David is too strong, too big, too young,
long, and Canelo has too many miles.
I don't believe for a second these guys are just concerned with making history, that they don't care about the money.
If that were true, then why did they allow Simpson Lukowicz to delay the Caleb Plant fight that they could have had sooner rather than later? Back when they were both unbeaten champions at the same weight on the same side of the street, it was Simpson Lukowicz that said in plain English, he wants to push the fight out a bit so it can amass more value.
If you were of the mindset that you just want to make history, you don't care about the money, then why'd you let that guy do that?
You would have had that fight then. You would have had 2 of the 4 major titles at this weight. You wouldn't just be some mandatory challenger. I feel like they would have had a lot more bargaining power had they had that fight then and won that fight then than what they got out of it now. They didn't even sell that many pay-per-views with that thing.
They didn't.
I think he is the best, and when you were at that level, you have to fight anyone, Benavidez Sr. said. When you're a champion, you fight anyone. That's what makes a champion.
He says they're not in it for the payday, they're in it to make history. They're in it for legacy. I don't know who he thinks he's kidding with that stuff.
Playing to the audience, perhaps, or trying to, on the premise that he's this altruistic prize fighter that doesn't care about the size of the prize.
Yeah, right.
Though in fairness, it is David's father doing most, if not all, of the talking, not necessarily David himself. That's usually the case.
So if you don't care about the payday, you don't care about the size of the prize, then surely you don't care where the fight happens. I mean, you're not going to let that get in the way, right?
Why would you? It's all about making history for you. I mean, the reason I highlight this is because it's entirely possible that Eddie Hearn and Matchroom will also make a play for such a fight. They're going to want to do that fight on their side of things, the same as Al Heyman and his PBC want to do it on theirs.
Simpson Lukowicz.
It's a big show. It's a big fight. Canelo Alvarez is estimated to have sold 450,000 pay-per-view buys with John Ryder.
Wow.
That's the kind of selling power he has. There will be a lot more spice in a Benavidez fight that will sell more pay-per-views.
Providing an incentive for Matchroom and DAZN to make a play for it.
That situation, Simpson Lukowicz is said to have already made a play for the fight, to bring the fight over to PBC and Showtime.
Where Canelo boxed Caleb Plant. I don't know that Canelo has or doesn't have any aversions to returning to Showtime.
But on the premise that he actually does have a preference and that he would prefer that the fight happen on DAZN, that would leave David with very little options, especially the way his father is carrying on. That they don't care about the payday, they just care about making history. Then surely where the fight happens shouldn't be an issue.
Well, in a general sense, it shouldn't be an issue because Canelo is so obviously the A-side to David Benavidez. David don't call the shots and neither does his team.
And I've never seen so many people try to escape from that reality, what is to them an inconvenient truth, that if Canelo wants the fight to happen, but he wants it to happen on DAZN, then that's where it needs to happen. The only question is DAZN going to do anything to pick up that fight? Because if they do, that leaves David with very little options.
Now, for me and my money, DAZN or Showtime, it's a good fight.
But the focal point is that David Benavidez and his team, David himself, is not in a position to try and dictate any terms to Canelo Alvarez.
None.
Whatsoever. You're not the one in the driver's seat. You are but a mandatory challenger, the same as John Ryder. That's as much leverage as you've got.
If Canelo does give you the time of day, you should consider yourself lucky.
Because he has options. He can still pick Demetrius Andrade over you, or perhaps take up Badu Jack on his offer to move up to cruiserweight and see if he can't become a 5-division champion.
That can happen.
And I know that some of the boo-birds and the critics are going to be disgruntled about that, but it doesn't work out to where Canelo makes a decision and somebody's not pissed off about it. If you pick David Benavidez, the guys that want him to fight Andrade are going to be pissed off. If you pick Demetrius, the guys that want him to fight David are going to be pissed off.
Same with Jack.
You can't please everybody.